Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of It's Me Speaking to You. I'm, as always, your host, Mr. Jeffrey Wilson, coming to you live and direct from the Gateway to the West, St. Louis, Missouri. And today, I have a very busy Mr. Conrad Thompson. He is the owner of First Family Mortgage, as well as a co-host of the Ric Flair Show and the proprietor of the Conradison. Mr. Conrad, what's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm great. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and promote the show a little bit. Thank you for having me, sir.
Well, yeah, you guys did an episode today, did you not?
We absolutely did. We had Jonathan Coachman on from ESPN, and that episode will be dropping tonight, and you should check it out. It's on MLW Radio, iTunes, or anywhere else that you catch your podcasts.
There you go. There you go. And, I mean, I've been a huge fan of not just in this incarnation, but the previous Woo Nation. You guys had just some heavy hitters, man. Ricky Morton, Gene Okerlund. I mean, you guys really had everybody on, and it was really cool to listen to you guys kind of pick their brain. You, sir, are definitely a bit of an encyclopedia of the business, if you will. You definitely know your wrestling. When did you get into it, brother? When did the wrestling bug bite you?
1988, I saw some VHS copies of WrestleMania 4, and I was hooked after that. It really captured my interest, and like a lot of wrestling fans, I kind of faded in or out of interest as time went on. But
who was the main on that
I'm
one?
Back in now. I'm back in now.
Who was the main event on that one?
It was a tournament, and Macho Man won the belt in the tournament final against Ted DiBiase.
Okay, yeah, they had to have the tournament because Andre gave up the belt and the two Hebner referees.
That's right. That's right. Maybe the most popular main event of all time in the history of the NBC WWE relationship. It was Hogan Andre, the rematch, with an understanding that Andre was going to sell the belt to the $1 Million Man if he won it, and they did the double referee spot where they, would lead you to believe that one of the referees had facial surgery to mirror the other, when really it was twins.
The Hebner boys, Earl and Dave, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that obviously that was definitely an interesting time in the business. Things were definitely changing. Like I said, I go back a little further, the territory days, Georgia Championship Wrestling, World Class, Memphis, wherever all those kind of stars wound up going to the WWF, WWE. What was your favorite time period, sir? I mean, obviously now we have the network, we have we might be all a little biased. We probably have our own little particular era we're biased to. Which time period was your favorite? There's so many.
My two favorite years were 1989 and 1997, but for completely different reasons. But yeah, I guess that lumps me into liking the old golden era and then liking the Attitude Era, or at least the early stages of the Attitude Era. But those two in particular are the years that stand out to me as my absolute favorite years overall, 89 and 97.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. There was definitely a change of the guard, man. I mean, I don't know, that's around where the Brainbusters jumped ship, or, Arn and Tully and Dusty wound up coming. There was a big, changing of the guard at the NWA. So, yeah, very, very interesting. Something you guys talk about on your show oftentimes, and Rick laments it quite often, is that roster, that old Jim Crockett roster that was absolutely stacked from top to bottom, even your tag team divisions. I mean, it was just, they were just packing houses all over the place. Do you have any memories of that, even going back YouTube-wise or anything?
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of Jim Crockett Promotions, and I think most fans who, watch wrestling and listen to podcasts and all that really lump into those two categories, either the Attitude Era or that golden age of the 80s. And the golden age is really based on what you grew up on. Did you grow up a little Hulkamaniac and you really enjoyed all the characters and cartoon versions of wrestling that you saw in WWF, or were you more traditionalist and you liked more Jim Crockett Promotion, or Southern wrestling, as my friend Bruce Pritchard would say? Yeah, I think it was fundamentally a different time in the business based on, what your cup of tea was, but it's really hard to argue that the match quality of what Jim Crockett Promotions put on wasn't superior to the product that was presented up north. It didn't lend itself to as many licensing opportunities or merchandise opportunities, but it certainly was high on the entertainment scale. And I would challenge anybody to go back and watch some of those 1-hour Broadways with Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, or, Terry Funk and Ric Flair, or Sting. Well, pretty much any Ric Flair match from back then was off the charts. But the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, I mean, those guys were just stealing the show every single night. And it was a moment in time that I think a lot of us would like to go back and relive just one more time.
What are your thoughts on? I mean, obviously, everybody has their own opinions on different promoters and wrestlers. I.e., Dusty Rhodes. You mentioned how Rock and Roll Express used to sell out all the time, and so they had, as they're bigger towns for your bigger named names on the card, and then you kind of had your smaller towns that maybe your Rock and Roll Express, your Midnight Express went to, and apparently those started outdrawing some of the bigger cards. And that's when you started seeing like Dusty integrating himself into the Rock and Roll with the 6-man. And what are your thoughts on that? Like Dusty trying to steal a little bit of shine.
Well, I think Dusty did what most bookers do. When you hear that Triple H has risen to power and he's on top, that's what everybody draws to. And a generation before, people said that about Rick and Dusty, and guys criticize Hulk Hogan for, holding other guys down and keeping his spot, and
right.
Whatever the narrative may be. But the reality is they always try to do what's best for business. And Dusty was in a position where he knew he was a draw. He knew that the Rock and Rolls were a draw. And if he could keep his position by pairing himself with a hot act, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very similar to all of a sudden you see James Ellsworth, plugged in because he's a hot act. He's in there with Dean Ambrose on everything now, and it makes sense. And I just don't think it's really this big war crime that a lot of wrestling fans make it to be when you kind of book yourself on the top of the promotion, because you know that you get it and you understand it. And I'm friendly with Kevin Nash, and Kevin has always taken a lot of flack for beating Goldberg, but the reality is, because he was the booker, but the reality is, what was the end game? I mean,
right.
Goldberg was going to be the only wrestler in the history of wrestling to never lose? No,
right.
Of course he had to lose. So they booked it to make him look strong and put a lot of gimmicks and a lot of shenanigans in there to protect him. And then he dropped the belt with a, finger poke of doom just a week later. So it's not as if he did this to, put himself over really strong. Somebody had to do it. And if you go back and you watch that tape and people kind of just, look back with a different set of glasses now, you go back and you watch that match, the crowd goes bananas when Kevin Nash wins. So, you had to be there. It is what it is. I don't criticize Dusty for putting himself in those spots. Dusty was over like Rover. He was doing a lot of the creative at the time. Maybe he could have managed the money a little better, but that wasn't his responsibility.
Sure.
His responsibility was to put on entertaining matches, and I think he did that.
Yeah, I mean, it also was a testament, too, of how stacked that card was and how stacked that roster was, rather, that, your Rock and Roll and some of those, quote-unquote, smaller names were outdrawing and outselling some of the bigger names. But no, you're absolutely right. Vern Gagne did it. Fritz Von Erich did it. I mean, they all kind of, who better could protect your product than you, so, and it was always usually good for the business. You're absolutely right. Well, fast forward to a little bit to today. Obviously, things have changed so much. What are your thoughts? I mean, everything changes. It's the natural state of things. What are your thoughts on today's product? I mean, I'm back into it, man. The tag team division I'm feeling with Big Cass and Enzo and Charlotte is just like killing it. What are your thoughts on today's stuff?
I really enjoy today's stuff, and I would challenge anybody who is critical of the product online to go back and watch some of the stuff that they kind of behold as the greatest. And when you go back and you look at that stuff, whether it is, 1999 WCW or WWF rather, or 1997 WCW, there's almost equal parts good and bad. It's not a home run in every single segment, and it's not a home run in every single segment now, but
sure.
You go back and you look at those shows, and there's one or two things in every show that you could really point to and say, okay, the rest of this I don't know about, but that was awesome. Well, that's still true now. It's just a matter of the internet being the way it is now and just society being the way it is now. People would rather bitch about what they don't have rather than appreciate what they do have.
Ain't that the truth? I tell people that all the time. You have way more than you don't, man. So what do you see as the future, man? Obviously you got the Performance Center, you have NXT, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the direction of the company and the product at large?
I don't know how
TNA obviously getting bought, rumors of Vince buying it.
There is never been a better time to be a wrestling fan than right now. Just with the amount of podcasts and all the content that you get on the network, and really pay-per-views gone away from the single biggest content provider, and there's just so much available. You could listen to a wrestling podcast every moment you're at work and not have to repeat anything. And it, for the most part, be pretty good content.
Absolutely.
And you've probably still got, 15 hours of wrestling every single week that you could watch on original programming. I mean, this has never really happened before. And the access that we have through social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, and the possibilities of interaction with guys, Facebook Live videos, and on and on and on, Instagram and whatever. There's just never been a better time to be a wrestling fan. So I think right now as a fan, this is about as good as it gets.
Right.
I would not want to be a performer in the business these days. It seems like you have very few options, and those options don't seem to be growing every day, no matter what the narrative is about new streaming services.
What are your thoughts on the TNA being sold? And I mean, obviously rumors of, this person buying it, this person buying it. And, obviously Vince's name's been thrown in there at least for buying the library. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I hope it survives in whatever incarnation it can, because it means more opportunity for their performers, and that's always good for the business. I don't want to see anybody lose their job or lose an income. I would like to see that business be successful. Being a realist, though, I don't see it happening. I don't know why anyone would want to pay a bunch of money for bad debt. It's a money loser. It's a terrible investment. If this was any other business, I mean any other business, everyone would be jumping up and down saying, fold, throw your chips in, file for bankruptcy, be done. There's nothing left here of value. And you could really, for the deal that TNA has on their TV deal, I don't know what has become public and what's not public.
Right.
That TV deal, anybody could get. So there's an opportunity for another player in the game to step in and replace them without having the silliness attached to the brand, without having all of the bad debt attached to the brand, without having some broken goodwill and some, they've got a little bit of an image situation that they've got to deal with. So why would you invest a whole bunch of money in someone who doesn't have a great image, who doesn't have a great reputation, who has had a few years, of running in the red now? It's not something that I would think you would want to try to go back and get into the bridge building business
or
again.
the option of buying it as content, like Vince did with WCW. The company went under, but he had the library that he now utilizes for his network.
That's a terrible idea, and I hope that I just read today that their offer has been reduced, and it should be. No one cares about TNA or their library. That's an ugly fact, but that's reality.
Right.
If their library was worth so much, they'd be selling DVDs like hotcakes.
True.
They'd be streaming internet on their website where you could download these matches like crazy. How in the world their website and their inventory and their product line is not catered solely to the best of AJ Styles, I'll never understand. He's the WWE champion, and we don't have old figures we can sell. We don't have old DVDs we can sell. We don't have. I would just be whoring that stuff out like crazy because that's what makes sense. But realistically, I mean, let's just do the math on this. Let's say that he was offering $2 million for the library. He's not, but let's say it is. If it was $2 million, how many people would you have to pay $10 a month to get a return? I mean, that's pretty simple. That's 200,000. So now, okay, let's break that down, and let's say we're only going to have 15,000 buy it a month. Are 15,000 people going to join the network that don't already have it because they want to see old AJ Styles match? No.
Right.
This is a bad business decision. It's not one that's going to be profitable for them. Make that number smaller. Let's cut it in half, 7,500. Let's cut it in half again, 3,250. It's not profitable. This is not a profit deal for WWE. It is, hey, we'd like to have it just to say we have it, and they got plenty of cash saved up, but you could not get a return on that. And I say that to mean, sure, it's more content for the existing subscribers, but those guys are going to subscribe anyway. He doesn't have to go spend millions of dollars to get people to keep it. They're keeping it for the pay-per-views and the stuff they're already doing. For you to go add a new line item expense like this, you've got to be adding new eyes to the product. So are you telling me there are TNA fans who are hardcore AJ Styles fans who aren't watching AJ Styles right now? It's not true. It's just not reality. It's a bad investment. He's doing it just as a goodwill thing for network subscribers and a long-term investment, but it's not worth millions of dollars. It might be worth $250,000. It's not worth millions of dollars.
He's doing it just for the AJ Styles stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, but again, what's the upside on that? You're going to put it on a DVD? Oh, that's right. You don't sell DVDs anymore. Yeah. So, WWE's not using DVDs as a profit center anymore. Now they're just putting everything on the network. Sure, they're still doing DVDs, but the Eric Bischoff DVD came out earlier this year. It's on the network now. It's just a matter of time before everything's on the network, and they just quit manufacturing and shipping, and they just say, you know what, let's just bump this $9.99 up to $14.99 and quit fooling around with the DVDs. But how many new subscribers would that TNA content bring? I mean, they can't sell 1,200 tickets. They're going to add 5,000 subscribers. It's not real.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, cool. Good insight. I figure you're a money man to me. You definitely good breakdown there. As far as the product now as it goes, obviously AJ Styles is killing it. As we talked about, man, it's all changing. But then, you have things like Goldberg coming in, and it's like, what? We're moving in this new direction and the new brand and the new era, but yet we got Goldberg on the game, and then going up against one of our top guys and Brock Lesnar. What are your thoughts on Goldberg's return, my friend?
I think it makes a lot of sense from a video game standpoint. They have been very successful with, doing partnerships with the Ultimate Warrior and Sting and guys from yesteryear who aren't currently in the game or on the product and making a run at that for their video game. So it's a good strategy to include Goldberg in that. So I totally support that as a business decision. But the idea of him being a full-time character back on television, I don't know if that makes any sense. I get that maybe they want to put together one match just for the video game purposes and sort of cross-promote that, and they may even be kicking in some money for that, and that makes sense. But I don't know what anybody expects out of a 49-year-old man who hasn't wrestled in 12 years.
Yeah, what's the finish on that? Are they just going to feed him to Goldberg like they did Randy Orton?
If I booked it, Goldberg would be destroyed in under a minute, and we would just put this to bed. Brock Lesnar is a guy who just beat up one of the most legit badasses in the history of the UFC in short order, dominated him. It wasn't close. And he did this after being out of the game for years and years and years and suffering from diverticulitis. Yeah. So if you're able to do that, you're going to tell me now it's even half-assed, remotely believable that he can't beat up a 49-year-old man who hadn't wrestled in 12 years? Mm-hmm. It's just not realistic. It doesn't make any sense. He should get squashed. But that won't happen because a 49-year-old man who hasn't wrestled in 12 years can't take, 24 suplexes on top of his head, which I get. So let's just get out of this and move on to more important things, because that's what this Goldberg thing is, a video game promotion, and then we're out of here.
That's just an interesting way that he's going to let his – I don't know if they feed him to Goldberg like they did Randy Orton. It's just interesting that Goldberg would allow them to kind of just do that, to punctuate his career with an ass-whooping like he's going to do.
Well, see, this is important to talk about, too. You're saying, I can't believe he would do that. Let's realistically talk about this. I know
it's a work. I understand it's a work.
No, not just it's a work. It's a business. And at the end of the day, what's Goldberg's income opportunity independent of this? I'm not saying that he doesn't have other opportunities, but I don't know his personal situation, but let me just tell you, this is his biggest paying gig he's going to have this year, bar none. So no matter what your situation is, I don't care how you book me. If you're going to pay me more for a nominal amount of effort that I'm going to have to put forth here than I'll make for the rest of the year, then count me in. You need me to jump on a plane a few times. You need a guy to, throw me around the ring for 7 minutes. Okay, I can get into shape and let you do that. Just when you hand me my check, make sure it has 2 commas. He's down for that. He's not doing this because he wants to punctuate his legacy. And this narrative that he wants to wrestle one more time for his wife because she never saw him, or his kid because he never saw him, that's all mushy, feel-good horseshit. He's doing it for a paycheck. The same reason Brock Lesnar's there. He's going to make a big payday, and he's going to go home. And whether you like the match or you don't, he still got paid either way.
And it'll sell a shitload of DVDs. Or I'm sorry, video games, the new video
It'll
games.
sell a whole lot of video games, and it'll be good from that. But this was a fantasy match for a reason, because the idea that this is competitive or entertaining is a fantasy.
Well, and the first one was terrible. I mean, granted, the timing of Brock leaving and the whole leave or whatever, just chanting him out of the building. The match still sucked.
Yeah, and that's not going to be better. And that's the thing that's weird to me. It's like, this match was terrible the first time. Can you imagine if they did it again? It's the most asinine thinking ever. It's like they want us to forget that the whole first run he had in the WWE didn't happen, but it did.
Right.
And they had him dressed up wearing Goldust wig. This was not good stuff, and now we're supposed to be excited for it to be back. I'm willing to play pretend and kind of toe the line here, because I get it. I understand it's for a video game. But to me, if you really want to make some headlines, hey, let's step out here and be creative and silly here. Let's put somebody over strong. Let's let Charlotte beat Goldberg clean in the middle. That's what I would do.
What?
Well, I know that sounds crazy, but let's just run through this. True or false, Chyna won the men's Intercontinental Championship.
That is true.
Are you going to say that Chyna is more competitive or more realistic than Charlotte? I don't buy it.
No.
And you're going to tell me that Charlotte, who is at the top of her game physically and is the most superior female athlete they have, probably in the history of the entire company. I don't know that can be debated.
Sure.
She can't beat up a 49-year-old man who hasn't wrestled in 12 years? Yes, she can. Let's go ahead and have Brock Lesnar pull out sick that day with diverticulitis, and let's send Charlotte to the ring, and let's let her get speared, stand up, and then give him the natural selection and the figure eight, and let him tap out and get his check and go home.
Man, I need to see Conrad booking some wrestling. That would be very interesting, brother. That would be very interesting to see. That crowd you talk about the crowd going nuts.
But I'm just saying, realistically, I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
Sure.
He should be there to put over Roman Reigns. He should be there to put over Rusev. He should be there to put over Rhino, and it should happen in that order. And hey, if there's anything left, let Charlotte pick the bones. But when you've got a guy who's coming back, all these WCW fans who are saying, "Oh, that's ridiculous. He has to win." For what purpose? Never in the history of wrestling has that made sense. The time-honored tradition, as they used to call it, is the old talent, when he's on his way out, lays down for the new talent.
Right.
And you keep the business going. Why would you invest a bunch of money in somebody who's going to be here once and then gone? It doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't have had The Rock beat John Cena at WrestleMania, and I didn't have Hulk Hogan beat The Rock at WrestleMania. I had The Rock beat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania, and I would wish that John Cena would have beat The Rock at WrestleMania because he's not going to be here. That's booking 101. Yeah. Goldberg cannot win. It shouldn't. But against Brock Lesnar, nobody would even remotely believe he has a chance. Goldberg came back to Raw wearing a big puffy jacket.
Yeah.
Where was his jacket when he was in WCW? The dude wanted to come out and show off how jacked up he was.
Yeah,
well, there's a wellness policy now, and you're 49. It's not the same Goldberg. It's not what you remember. Just leave the memories alone and let them be where they are, and let him do some commentary, maybe second somebody and punch somebody from the crowd and have a little angle where he's in somebody's corner. But the idea that we expect him to come in and have a big, long, extended run here and be the champ, that's not going to happen. That's not realistic.
Yeah, I'll be definitely anxious to see that play out, man. Very interesting. Interesting analysis, my friend. Well, speaking of Charlotte, obviously I'm going to let you go here in a minute, but speaking of Charlotte, she has a huge match coming up, the first time females have ever done the Hell in a Cell. I mean, that's what I saw from her on Raw a couple weeks ago with that, corkscrew moonsault. Me and my daughter, our mouths were just hanging open, and I can only imagine listening to her interview with Lita about just wait and see about what I do. I'm worried about him. What are your thoughts about this Hell in a Cell with Charlotte and Sasha?
I hate it, and I wish it wasn't happening. I think they've set the girls up to fail, and I'm great friends with her in real life, and I don't like to be this way, but she's in an unwinnable position now. You know, this Hell in a Cell concept has been pushed so high, so often, so long now that people have unrealistic expectations. The very first one, Shawn came off the thing. And the second one, Foley went off it, through a table, and then through the thing. And so, even Rikishi did a bump off the thing into the bed of a truck. It's just
up until recently, Shane came off it with Taker at
earlier this year, 6-7 months ago, the Undertaker throws, or has Shane jump off the thing. People have this expectation now, and coming out of all those matches, no one talked about those matches except for the Rikishi bump, except for the Shane bump, except for the Foley bump.
Right.
They didn't talk about the match they did otherwise. People forget there was even thumbtacks in the Foley one. They just talk about the big bump. And so it doesn't become about the wrestling.
His tooth coming out of his nose.
If you don't have, these girls get color, which they won't, and you don't have anybody get thrown off the top, which they won't, then people are going to say that, they're going to focus on what didn't happen in the match more so than what did happen in the match.
Right.
And so they could go in there and put on a damn 5-star classic clinic that is the modern day equivalent of Steamboat Flair, and no one will care because nobody got thrown off the top with their hair on fire and fell through a barbed wire table that was covered in thumbtacks, and there was, a lion's den below it, and somebody lost a limb, and they stretchered them out, and then there was an explosion. Like, if none of that happens, then this is going to be conceived as being a failure. And, by the way, pile the pressure on of it's the first main event ever for a woman, and pile the pressure on it's the first ever Hell in a Cell, and pile the pressure on of 2 other male matches are on the same show in the same structure. Like, it's an unclearable bar. People are going to come out of this disappointed no matter what they do, and I think that's a shame because I do think they're capable of putting on a phenomenal match, but no one will talk about it lovingly the next day.
Yeah, like you said, the bar definitely for those kind of matches has been set very high, and I just hope, I hope for a great match, obviously, but trying to outdo the years of the lineage of how awesome all those matches have been. I just hope they're safe, and may the best woman win.
Well, I don't know if the best woman will win, but I sure hope Charlotte does.
I like that. Well, man, I'm going to let you slide and let you promote. Before you do, tell us how you hooked up with the 16-time Nature Boy, because you are co-host of the Ric Flair Show. You were co-host of Woo Nation. How did that come about that you linked up with, this guy is like a hero. He's everywhere throughout the world still. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair. How did you link up with my man?
I met Rick in 2013, not too long after he lost his son, and he had relocated from Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia. He was dating a woman in Atlanta whose children lived there, and she still had a joint custody situation, so she couldn't move. He was anxious to get out of Charlotte and just have a change of scenery from where he lost his son. And so I don't live too far from Atlanta. I met him at an appearance. We had common friends. I had recently become friendly with Jim Cornette and friendly with James J. Dillon and a few other folks that he knew. And so he had heard about me before he actually met me. And then when I had an opportunity to meet him, it kind of clicked. He knew who I was. We traded numbers. One thing leads to another. We watched some football games together. I go to his birthday party. He comes to my birthday party. Nice. And then we were just totally integrated and would travel to shows together. And he'd come hang out at the house and float around the pool. And, we just became friends. And along the way, he realized that I advertised my mortgage company on local talk radio every morning. So there would be an opportunity for me to just be live on the air, promoting my mortgage company, similar to the way I am with you. So when he had an opportunity to do a podcast, he asked if I would just sit in with him just one day for his very first show, just to kind of let him feel comfortable, and I could ask him questions, and he could kind of get his feet underneath him, and then he would just move on in the podcast as a solo act. But at the end of the show, he liked it so much, he asked me to come back. CBS liked that idea, so he kept asking me to come back, and now 2 years later, I'm there every week.
You guys definitely have a great chemistry. It's funny how you kind of have to rein him in. Sometimes the stories can get a little, I don't know, you try to keep it, I don't know, I would say,
Now listen, at the end of the day, it is the Ric Flair Show.
Sure.
My role is to not really be overbearing and not be as animated as I am on the phone with you. People are listening to hear from Ric Flair. My role in that show is to just keep the show on the tracks, and I do that. But
you ask great questions too, man. You get great opportunities to talk to these guys. You do ask great questions.
I appreciate that, and I'm having a fun time on my buddy Bruce Pritchard's show as well. His show is called Something to Wrestle With, Bruce Pritchard. It's on Fridays at noon on MLW Radio, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. Anywhere you find your podcasts, you can catch the Ric Flair Show Wednesday nights at 9. And then on Friday at noon, catch Something to Wrestle With, Bruce Pritchard. Those are the two places you can catch, in my opinion, the two greatest podcasts around, of course, besides this one.
Thank you very much, my friend. You have been very, very generous with your time, buddy. Thank you so very much. Tell Rick I said what's up, man, and Charlotte, all the best, and continued success to you, my friend.
I have one favor, though. I didn't mind doing your show, but I have to ask a favor now.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna need for you to give me a Roll Tide.
A Roll Tide!
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, brother. Peace, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Conrad Thompson on It's Me Speaking to You. Everybody stay tuned. There will be more.